Hi, my name is Cherie. Welcome to my journey. Today, it's already Take Out the Trash Thursday. Hold on, 'cause there's a lot of trash you gotta throw out. Hold on. Okay, so we're gonna throw out the notion that we're gonna be blaming our mothers for for being uneducated. Okay, because typically most mothers were not supported in the family. Okay? Most mothers or daughters in the family were not supported. They were not encouraged to go to college. Even today, the men are jealous of educated women. And even a woman who is traveled is also culturally educated, okay? To the contrast of the culture where she came from, the traditions in that area, and wherever she travels to, she's also learning through contrast the different cultures, the different religions, the different traditions that exist in the world. That's why a traveled woman is also a learned woman, right? That's why men don't want a woman that's learned, because she will understand the difference between intelligence, wisdom, and, just plain propaganda. Okay? So, yeah, I'm surprised that woman doesn't eventually get a stroke. A white woman walking in the heat of Texas weather, right? At, what is it, 2 o'clock in the afternoon? Yeah, 2:18. Okay? And now I am on my way to work out. Okay? I am on my way to work out at the gym where there's air conditioning. If there's no air conditioning there, we will not be working out there. So, getting back to what I was talking about. Your mother can only make decisions based off of the information she knew at the time. And men love to act like gatekeepers, telling women they had either one choice or another choice, right? That's why Libra is so revered in the world today. Libra is revealed in the world because they accepted the either or choice. Gemini does not. Gemini is too multifaceted to accept an either or. They got to at least accept four. Okay? Now, got to concentrate when we're making this left turn here. Okay? So yeah, my mother, she told me that, she made decisions based off of the information that she knew at the time, right? And that's something that I keep with me all the time. Whenever I have to make decisions, I have to make sure to make the decisions based off of the information that I have at the time. However, I don't like the fact that we live in a secretive world and that information is hidden. Which means what? You got to dig deep to get this information. Even the information that is given to you, a lot of times it's biased, right? And a lot of people will say, well, the biased information is to make the information be absorbed easily, right? And it's like, well, what if it's not? What if it's not absorbed easily? What if my perspective is different? Which it will be. It always is. I love to at least contradict another person's perspective, even if it's for a hot moment, even if it's for a joke, right? Because when you accept other people's opinion over your own, you're still going to be held accountable, okay, to your decisions, right? Even if we say, an eye for an eye, and that's what it says in the Quran, okay? An eye for eye, right? But we are still going to be held accountable for our decisions, right? Even if somebody was to say, accuse somebody of being a harlot, right? You're still going to be held accountable for your decisions, right? You think that it's appropriate to rape a harlot because you classified them as a harlot, therefore there's no such thing as raping a harlot? Oh, that's the same thing that they thought when they were like, well, no, that's my wife, I can't possibly rape my wife. She's my property. I should be able to do whatever I want to her. And it was all a lie. It was all propaganda. Okay? It was all propaganda that the men utilized the slave trade techniques on their own wives. Right? This is not love. They did not love their lives. They treated their lives as possessions. And so now we have a whole population of offspring that was born out of love, which means they have no love, they have no example of love. Now they do have an example of obedience and, maybe loyalty, maybe, right? But usually that looks more like backstabbing, treachery, and power struggles, to gain, a power dynamic at least, okay? So, damn, that truck is loud. Supported to a certain degree in their family. They weren't, okay? Because my grandfather, ended up remarrying another woman and having 8 children with the second wife, okay? And that's on my mom's side. God only knows what my grandfather did on my dad's side. Because, he was definitely, a man of the world. We don't even know who he is. We do know his last name is Hardy. We do know that. So I have relatives with the last name of Hardy out there that I only met one, and her name was Valerie Hardy. I met her, but everybody else on the Hardy side of the family, I don't know. Okay? And it was this Hardy dude that truly violated the norm, right? He also had violated the norm because he had been taken into the family as an adopted child, right? And ended up, impregnating my grandmother at the age of 12. And she had my dad when she was 13. So, yeah, a lot of wicked stuff had happened in the dysfunction period of the boomers, okay? No doubt, okay? And but let's be realistic, right? The boomers generation was a whole 30 years. Everybody else after that generations are 15 years. Why is that? Okay. I've already told you why. Because initially, the generation was ruled by Saturn, right? Saturn was at home. It was very powerful, right? Saturn was in Capricorn, right? For who knows how long, okay? And then when society decided to go on to the 15-year generation, then they went to the cycle of Mars. It takes Mars 15 years to cycle around the sun, okay? So, and because my mom and her sisters never really got support from her family, they didn't get their degrees until they were well into their 50s. Yeah, and they were well into their 50s before they had a chance to get their degrees. Right? In our society now, they basically want you to pretty much give up, on getting a degree unless, you come from a family of money. Right? Somehow or another, they feel like there just isn't enough money to sponsor degrees for old people. And yet, like I said, my mom and all her sisters, they ended up getting a degree, but they had to get Indian scholarships. Okay? So, my mom was well into her 50s when she had got her degree. And because she was older, including my aunties and stuff, none of them really, went to the graduation ceremony because, the ceremonies was typically designed for the young people, right? Even though a degree at any age should be celebrated. Okay? So that's something that a lot of people have to take under consideration when they're dealing with women, right? A lot of women, they get impregnated. Like even my brother. My brother impregnated his high school girlfriend. before she had a chance to get out of high school. God only knows if she, went back and, you know, was able to graduate high school, or if she had to get her GED, if she, tried to get, a college degree after that. I don't know very much about it at all. You know, my brother, only talks about the son that he had with her, and he's basically, left her completely out of the situation. The last thing I think he said about her was she was on drugs. That's the last thing he said about her, and nobody else asked any more questions. Because what can you know about somebody that's on drugs, except, yeah, they're on drugs, probably out here causing harm, maybe going to rehab, maybe, doing criminal activities to support their habit. It just, who wants to know all of that? What? Unless you're, close to them, and, you want to be warned that, okay, that's the main reason why people want to know about whether or not somebody's on drugs. Because when somebody's on drugs, they do have the tendency to be not of their rational mind, right? So when you ask somebody to make decisions while they are on drugs, they're going to make decisions based off of how they see things at the time, right? It won't be necessarily what they know at the time, but it's how they perceive things at the time, right? What you know at the time is usually from a rational perspective. How you perceive things at the time is based off of, where your head is at. Okay? Now, this whole movement that they have done in the last 20 years of trying to make your emotions more important than your rational mind, and I don't see it. I think we should throw that out the window and tell people to be more emotionally regulated. Why? Because, number one, if you know astrology, we relate, our emotions with the moon. Okay? The moon traverses a sign every 2.5 hours, right? That's how it goes through our, our atmosphere, okay? So that's why if you're feeling a particular way right now, 2.5 hours from now, you will not be feeling the same way. You would really have to drag that feeling with you in order to still feel that way. Right? So when you have people dragging these feelings with them, it causes an emotional imbalance in the chemistry and how the neurons and synapses are firing off, because they're dragging, and making a feeling paramount, to them. Okay? And that don't matter, whatever it is. It don't matter. Okay? Because we weren't meant to hold on to our feelings. If we were meant to hold on to our feelings, then it seems like we would have attached, our feelings to some fixed star out there instead of a fucking satellite. So let's throw that out. But I'm going to go inside here and do my workout. because I said I was going to get out every day, go to the gym, do my workout, because number one, my car is working. I can get here. Number two, they got air conditioning. Let's go. Bye.